Reaching up to 6 meters in length and weighing well over 4 tons, it boasted an overwhelming and massive size completely comparable to today's giant African elephants. Please forget about the small modern sloths hanging from tree branches. Megatherium was simply too heavy to climb, so it spent its entire life walking heavily on the ground. Most notably, their incredibly robust front paws were equipped with sharply curved, hook-like claws. Reaching up to 30 centimeters in length, these claws served as highly intimidating and deadly weapons. To protect these long claws, they utilized a knuckle walking method by curling them inward. Much like gorillas, they moved slowly, stepping only on the backs of their front paws. Their most astonishing behavior was displayed during mealtime. Using their thick, heavy tail and 2 sturdy hind legs as a firm anchor, they could stand completely upright like a giant tripod. After raising their massive 4-ton bodies up to 6 meters high, they stretched out their long arms and sharp claws to easily pull down fresh leaves from the highest branches. Gentle herbivores primarily feeding on leaves and grasses. Their incredibly thick and robust jawbones allowed them to effortlessly crush and swallow very tough plants. Their digestion process was remarkably slow for their size. Inside their massive stomachs, they slowly fermented coarse plants over several days, efficiently absorbing nutrients from relatively small amounts of food. To survive the bitter cold of the Pleistocene Ice Age, their bodies were covered in thick, shaggy fur. You might assume such a slow-moving giant would be an easy target. However, when sensing danger, they stood tall on their hind legs to display their immense size. By fiercely swinging their giant, sickle-like front claws, they easily repelled any approaching predator. At that time, South America swarmed with terrifying predators like long-fanged saber-toothed cats. However, hunting Megatherium, with its elephant-like size and lethally swinging front claws, was practically an impossible task. A fully grown adult Megatherium was an absolute presence in nature without any natural rivals. They undoubtedly spent many long, peaceful days leisurely strolling through wide plains, feeding on leaves. However, their seemingly eternal peace faced an unimaginable crisis about 10,000 years ago. As the Pleistocene slowly ended, the Earth underwent rapid and severe environmental changes, bringing massive threats. As the global climate suddenly grew warmer and increasingly dry, the dense forests that served as their food supply rapidly vanished. Worse still, a completely new and highly lethal threat emerged. Early humans, fully equipped with sharp weapons and sophisticated hunting skills, migrated into South America. The mountain-sized, slow-moving Megatherium became an incredibly easy and plentiful prey for these hungry hunters. Even the incredibly resilient Megatherium could not overcome the twin fatal waves of drastically shrinking food sources and relentless human hunting. They eventually vanished completely, walking the path of permanent extinction. The name, Deinotherium, means terrible beast. This scientific name comes from the overwhelming form of its massive lower jaw and the tusks that curved downward from there. Its most powerful ecological feature is the mandibular tusks. Unlike modern elephants that use upper tusks, Deinotherium evolved 2 tusks extending from the lower jaw, curving downward. These lower tusks were not just weapons. Connected to a strong jaw, they functioned as essential foraging tools for hooking branches or stripping bark from tough trees. These animals were giants that monopolized forest resources. Their method of hooking high branches with lower tusks and grinding them was distinct from other species eating foliage. The skull structure shows a much lower and flatter forehead than modern elephants. This indicates a different brain structure and highly specialized sensory organs for forest life. The nose was not as long as a modern elephant's. Judging by muscle attachment points, it was fused with the lip, acting more for smell than grasping items. Their molars featured a ridge-like structure. This was a classic form for chewing tough leaves and bark, providing highly efficient digestion for this large forest herbivore species. To maintain their massive body, they consumed hundreds of kilograms of plants daily. Constant migration to find food was an essential part of their natural ecological behavior. Their bone density was adapted to support 14 tons. Joints were structured to distribute weight evenly, allowing efficient movement across the irregular terrain of the dense forest. They belonged to the distinct family, Deinotheriidae. This means they branched off from the elephant lineage and evolved through an entirely different anatomical path as independent giants. During the late Cenozoic, climate change shifted forests into grasslands. The Deinotherium's feeding habits, specialized for forest plants, became a critical limiting factor for their survival then. The decline of food sources led to the species' decay. Their molar structure and lower tusks were unsuited for grassland, limiting their adaptation and reducing numbers. Eventually, they went extinct during the late Pleistocene as the environment changed entirely. Fossil records clearly prove they survived in the last forest patches until the end. Bone shapes reveal their true lives. The wear patterns on the lower tusks prove how they destroyed trees, explaining why they are called the forest's great destroyers. Is this massive creature, over 15 meters long, a sea monster? Or perhaps an extinct dinosaur? Surprisingly, this is Basilosaurus, an early whale that ruled the oceans about 40 million years ago. Why on earth did a whale evolve to have such a bizarre, elongated body? Reaching up to 18 meters in length, this creature boasts a thick, solid, and muscular body that is closer to a giant submarine than a slender snake. What's interesting is its swimming method. Rather than swaying its body from side to side like a fish, it navigated the sea by powerfully bending its spine up and down, much like riding a wave, just as modern whales do. In the marine ecosystem of its time, this creature had no rivals. It was an apex predator with a terrifying bite force of over 1.6 tons, capable of crushing the bones of its prey in a single bite. However, it had a fatal weakness. Because its body was so long, it was difficult to dive into the deep sea where the water pressure was high. Therefore, it mostly stayed in the sunlit shallow waters, ambushing its prey. Towards the back of this terrifying hunter's body, a truly bizarre remnant remains. It is a very small pair of hind legs, measuring only 60 centimeters. While completely useless for swimming, they are crucial evolutionary evidence that the ancestors of whales were originally four-legged animals that walked on land. Even this powerful hunter, the king of the shallow seas, ultimately failed to survive the massive crisis of climate change. As the Ice Age began and its habitat disappeared, it faced extinction, unable to adapt to the deep, cold ocean. However, the evolutionary record they left behind continues to live on in the whales that roam the oceans today. Look at this massive, overwhelming horn on its forehead. Would you believe it if the true identity of the legendary unicorn was actually this ferocious, colossal beast? Today's subject is Elasmotherium, a prehistoric rhinoceros that lived during the Cenozoic Ice Age. Reaching 5 meters in length and weighing nearly 4 tons, it was far larger than modern rhinos. Its most distinct feature is the giant horn erupting from its forehead. Scientists estimate this horn could grow up to 2 meters long, continuously growing throughout its entire life. This horn was made of keratin, the same substance as human fingernails, rather than bone. It served as a powerful weapon to intimidate rivals during the mating season or to defend against predators. To support its massive body, its legs were incredibly thick and muscular. With longer legs than modern rhinos, it was capable of running surprisingly fast despite its heavy weight. They inhabited the cold, arid steppes of Eurasia and Siberia. To survive the brutal cold, their entire bodies were densely covered in thick, coarse fur. Looking at the skull structure, its neck naturally angled downward. This was a unique ecological adaptation that allowed them to easily graze on low-growing vegetation on the ground. They primarily fed on tough, coarse grasses and mosses. Thanks to their high-crowned teeth that grew continuously, they could easily grind and chew tough vegetation mixed with soil. When winter blanketed the steppes in snow, they used this massive single horn like a plow. They swept the snow aside to uncover and feed on the grass hidden beneath. However, around 39,000 years ago, as the Earth's climate shifted abruptly, the vast steppes vanished and their food supply dwindled. Ultimately, they failed to adapt and faced extinction. Though completely gone from the Earth, they remain in ancient cave paintings and human memory as the one-horned beast, remembered as a legendary creature to this very day. Tyrannosaurus, the most ferocious slaughterer in Earth's history. But did you know that before being a cold-blooded hunter, this monster was a parent with deeper maternal love than anyone else? Even the ultimate apex predator began its journey in front of a massive mound nest. The mother Tyrannosaurus used her colossal body to block other scavengers, fiercely protecting her eggs with utmost care. As time passes, breaking through the hard eggshells, the hatchlings finally step into the world. Covered in soft, fluffy down feathers, the newborns closely resembled modern-day birds. To keep her young safe, the mother begins moving them to a new sanctuary. The hatchlings follow her gigantic footprints, protected from the threats of other carnivorous dinosaurs lurking in the forest. As the hatchlings grow, the mother sets out for a serious hunt. Tyrannosaurus possessed exceptional binocular vision to look straight ahead and a phenomenal sense of smell capable of tracking scent from miles away. Today's target is the heavily armed Triceratops. Despite her massive size, the mother silently slips through the forest, seeking a vulnerability in her heavily fortified prey. Ambushing in a sudden burst, the mother bites down precisely on the Triceratops' neck. Her crushing bite force, reaching up to 5 tons, the strongest in terrestrial history, instantly shatters bone and thick hide. With the hunt successful, the mother calls her young to the carcass. The hatchlings, whose teeth and jaws are still weak, eat the tender portions of meat torn away by their mother to gain vital nutrients. This communal feast is more than just feeding. By watching their mother, the young naturally learn how to dismantle prey and acquire the survival skills needed to endure the brutal Cretaceous environment. Leaving her well-fed young behind, the mother strides majestically across the land once more. Perfectly balancing her weight with her massive tail, every single step radiates the supreme dignity of a king. Would you actually believe it if the ancient ancestor of today's cute, familiar pigs was a 1-ton savage monster from hell that completely terrorized the entire prehistoric continent? The identity of this terrifying creature is Entelodon, an apex mammal that dominated the Cenozoic-Oligocene epoch 30 million years ago. It was widely feared as the ruthless hell pig. Although its outer appearance closely resembled a giant, nightmarish pig, recent advanced genetic studies reveal that it was surprisingly closer to the lineages of modern hippopotamuses and whales. It possessed an abnormally massive skull that accounted for a quarter of its entire body, prominently featuring those bizarre, heavy bony protrusions flaring out right below its wide cheekbones. Utilizing its jaw that opened exceptionally wide like a crocodile and its razor-sharp teeth, it easily crushed the thick, hard bones of carcasses to thoroughly consume the rich marrow inside. To maintain such an immense body mass within the arid, harsh environment, it relentlessly tracked down scarce waterfronts, aggressively gulping down the river water to satisfy its burning thirst. Immediately after drinking, it threw its heavy body into the thick, sticky mud to wallow deeply. This crucial behavior effectively shielded its coarse skin from the sun and regulated its temperature. Once its intense foraging and violent movements were finished, it laid its heavy frame down beneath dense forest canopies or rocky shadows, quietly digesting food to recharge its vast energy. Its brain was remarkably small, barely the size of a human fist, resulting in low intelligence. However, its sensory organs were so highly developed that it smelled rotting meat miles away. During the late Oligocene, Earth's climate shifted dramatically into severe drought. As the lush, protective forests vanished into barren grasslands, their traditional ways of survival faced a critical, fatal limit. Eventually, outcompeted by much faster and far more intelligent predators that adapted to the changing world, it faced extinction. Yet, it remains the most ruthless beast of the ancient world. Would you actually believe that the ancient ancestor of today's majestic, thundering racehorses was once a tiny, cat-sized creature dodging predators in a primeval jungle? Meet Eohippus, the ultimate pioneer of the horse lineage, roaming the earth 50 million years ago during the Eocene epoch. Its name beautifully translates to the dawn horse. Shaking off the image of modern giants, this miniature beast stood only 12 inches tall at the shoulder, weighing a mere 12 pounds, no larger than a house cat. Its most shocking evolutionary secret lies in its feet. Instead of a single solid hoof, Eohippus featured 4 soft toes on the front feet and 3 on the back. They didn't roam wide open grasslands, they inhabited hot, humid, and dense prehistoric rainforests. Their compact bodies were perfectly designed to weave through thick, tangled undergrowth with ease. Their primitive, low-crowned teeth weren't built for chewing tough grass. Instead, they selectively browsed on soft forest floor treats, including tender leaves, fallen fruits, and young shoots. To survive as prime targets for predators, their coats likely featured dappled spots or stripes. This patterns offered flawless camouflage amid the shifting light and shadows of the forest. Rather than galloping like modern horses, they bounded through the brush like tiny forest deer. Their highly flexible spines allowed them to make sharp, lightning-fast turns in tight spaces. Ruthless ancient carnivores and terrifying giant terror birds constantly hunted them. Eohippus relied on its exceptionally sharp hearing and wide-angle vision to detect danger and vanish instantly. As the Eocene ended, global cooling shrank the dense jungles into dry, open plains. To adapt to this new world, they grew larger, and their toes slowly fused into hooves. Though just a tiny, hiding forest dweller, the delicate steps of Eohippus were the crucial first strides toward the grand, powerful gallop that would someday conquer the global plains. Did you know that an invisible predator actually flies across sheer cliffs in -40 degrees, living like a phantom where oxygen barely exists? The snow leopard, the absolute ruler of the Himalayas, lives in extreme isolation. It constantly patrols massive, rugged territories spanning hundreds of square miles entirely alone. Across this vast home range, they communicate through scent. By leaving deep claw scrapes on rocky walls and spraying pungent urine, they violently warn off rivals. When hunting begins, the snow leopard shows terrifying patience. Always claiming higher ground above its prey like blue sheep, it perfectly blends into rocks, waiting silently. Once in range, it strikes instantly. Even while tumbling hundreds of feet down sheer, deadly cliffs locked with its prey, it never releases the fatal throat bite. Seeking absolute safety from blizzards and rivals, the mother claims the most inaccessible cave. There, she lines a warm nest with her own fur to birth her vulnerable cubs. Cubs remain with their fierce mother for 2 grueling years. They relentlessly practice scaling sheer cliffs and mastering ambush techniques to become fully independent apex predators. Even apex predators face deadly threats. They fiercely clash with Tibetan wolf packs over food and constantly battle starvation during catastrophic avalanches and relentless blizzards. Dominating the highest, most unforgiving environment on Earth, the snow leopard thrives. Their dynamic ecology, seamlessly blending with harsh nature, remains nature's most thrilling epic.